question I want to ask you. Have you ever felt like you are the best qualified in what you do? You are pretty much the answer. You believe. You believe you're the guy. You believe you're the woman. You believe you're the person, right? And then you feel like because you're the person or you're gifted, you feel like sometimes, well, my gifts should just knock down or knock open all the doors and opportunities should just fall in my lap. But what if I told you that even being gifted and being blessed and even chosen for the positions that you believe belong to you, may opportunity may cause you to wait. And I know we don't like to hear that word wait. I kind of hate the word, but I've gotten better with it over time. Okay. Today is about always be ready. Always be ready. Type that in the comments. Always be ready. Now, if I did a subtitle for this, it would be how to stay ready when opportunity delays you. How to stay ready when opportunity delays you. I, again, in talking about this word wait or waiting, I can't stand waiting at times. I can't stand the delay at times. Have you ever been driving on the freeway and it seems like traffic is flowing great, and then all of a sudden you doing 80, 90 miles an hour? I'm telling some of y'all's business. But then all of a sudden, traffic starts to slow down. And now you're having to wait. You can't exit. There's no, you don't have, you're in the middle lanes or you're in the middle and you can't get off to the side and try to ride the side lane. But, or to ride the shoulder to get off. No, you're just stuck. You're having to wait. Waiting does not feel great. Waiting tests you, right? Waiting makes you feel like, man, I deserve this, but why am I waiting? Why can't we just get this going? Can we be honest with ourselves and say we've been impatient or we're somewhat impatient at times? How about waiting being frustrating when you're in a season of transition? You're in a season where you're growing from what you're accustomed to, and now you're growing to another place. And that season is testing you because you're not used to where you're growing to. You said you wanted the promotion. You've you've confessed, I believe this promotion is mine. But then when the opportunity or the challenge the opportunity provides you, tests you to see how serious are you about this opportunity. Then you begin to wonder, well, wait a minute. I'm not, I shouldn't be waiting like this, but if I'd have known it was going to be like this, maybe I wouldn't have got started. Isn't it true with some of us? If God told us everything up front, and do you really think we would actually be excited to move? Or some of the challenges we had to have along the way that came because of the opportunity, we would actually be like, man, I'm excited about it. No, we would avoid it. And this is why I believe at times, yes, God does not tell us certain things up front because we're so used to operating by sight. But when it's time to operate by faith, there are going to be some things in the way. And the things in the way are really to challenge you to see, again, how serious you are. If you like this video, thank y'all for joining now. But if you like this video or you're here, hey, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Let this message go out to be a blessing to somebody you know, not just for yourself, but someone you know that could need this type of encouragement to help them before beginning the new week. Always be ready. Always be ready. That's what I want to talk about, okay? So let's look at this. Again, let's stay on waiting just for a minute. A few things I wrote down for you, and I want to be able to share with you tonight, okay? Number one, when we hear messages or titles that say, hey, the waiting season is over, man, we get excited about it because we're looking at the external outcome. But when it doesn't, but when the season is not over like we think it is, we think we missed it. How about in the waiting? The waiting proved the waiting is over, but you're just not used to the result and how you had to wait so you could grow. So you're thinking you're not growing, you're thinking you're not transforming, you're thinking you're not moving forward. Actually, you are, but you're in a waiting season because you can't control this season because you're not familiar with it. And the saying is true. Yes, familiarity does breed contentment. You see, when change happens, or when we're in a season of transition and we have to wait, or we're in a waiting or holding spot, we don't like because we can't control the outcome. And so, what you must do, instead of trying to control the outcome, you really must begin to challenge and transform the income. I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about on the inside at the root of who you are. Look at waiting. Again, I said waiting is not easy, especially when you know you deserve it. Okay? Waiting, watch this. Again, you know you're gifted and you're designed for the promotion, but you're waiting. It seems like the people who may be less gifted than you or don't even have what you have, it seems like they're advancing more than you. Yeah, yeah. Watch this. You're waiting. You want the hidden season to be over with. Yep. You want it to be over with so you can defend yourself. You want it to be over with because you're used to having a certain type of reputation. And now this kind of transformation and this type of opportunity is challenging you now in ways that you thought were not possible. This, what you're dealing with, this in this waiting period, you are finding out who you really are. In this waiting period, you are finding out what's at your core. Now, watch this. When you're qualified, this is another thing about waiting. When you're qualified, but you're still overlooked. When you're qualified, but you're still overlooked. Look, you've done all the steps. You followed steps 1 through 12, and yet you still don't see the transformation. You're like, how is this supposed to happen? Wait a minute, I did what was required, but I'm still waiting. Why? Now I want to share some things with you. A couple of things. Let's talk about what waiting does. Okay. Thank y'all for joining here right now. I see you. Thank you so much for being here. Again, if you're here and you find this impactful or helpful to you, definitely hit the like and the subscribe button to get this message out into the YouTube sphere out there so people can reach or be blessed by this, what you're hearing, just like you are. Okay. So there are 3 things I want to talk about what waiting does. Are you ready for this? Let me know in the comments if you're ready to find out what it is that waiting does. I know this is not a popular topic. I know this is not a subject that's going to make you run and shout or make you get highly emotional or make you get so hype, which I don't have any problem with being excited. I get that. Being excited can be helpful. But the issue is I get tired of people getting excited or shouting on credit, but really avoiding substance. So I want to share some things that I believe that waiting does. Okay. Number 1, waiting exposes your ego. Waiting exposes your ego. How do I know that? You believe you don't deserve this kind of treatment that the challenge or the opportunity is pulling out of you. Yeah, 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 yeah. You think I'm not supposed to go through this. I'm not supposed to deal with this. I wanted the dream. I just didn't want the cost that came with the dream. We don't say that when we get started. But when we're in the process or when we're in the middle, after the excitement of the promise is over with, go and we get excited definitely about the destination, the prosperity increase at the end, but we're missing the process in the middle. So you believe that the challenge, the opportunity is presenting to you. You don't deserve the challenge, but you want the results or you want the benefits of the opportunity. Let me say it this way. You want the benefits of the opportunity, but you do not want the burden the opportunity may present. And you know what the burden does? You know what in terms of exposing your ego, let me share this with you. You think you're still in control. Oh my gosh. Have I had a battle with this one? I've been wrestling for control because I don't want to look like I'm insufficient. I've been wrestling with control or staying in control because I don't want to look like I don't have it together. Really, when the truth of the matter is, if you lay down your preconceived notions, you can possibly receive more than what you thought with the control you thought you had. See, our control hinders us from receiving what's already there. See, we want to be in control because we don't want to be embarrassed. But in this season, I'm learning to be unirritable. I'm also learning to be unembarrassed. Mm, yeah. I'm learning to die to my ego. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And see, there are times when we don't die to our ego by decision, but we are forced to lay down our ego in challenge. hmm 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 So number one, say this with me. Waiting exposes your ego. But here's the second thing waiting does. Waiting exposes your emotions, or waiting exposes and amplifies your emotions. Mm, mm. Now, here's the thing I know about waiting that we don't like. It's the pressure in between. It's the pressure in between where I left from, on the way to where I'm going. Now, here's what pressure will do while you're waiting. Pressure will frustrate, if you allow it, pressure will frustrate you out of alignment. Pressure will frustrate you out of alignment. What I mean by that? Okay, let's say this. I've had it happen. Okay. I was supposed to advance to a certain place, right? But what I did, I was enthusiastic to start. But then when the pressure on the journey got greater than my enthusiasm, it seemed easier to go back than it did to go forward. It seemed easier to copy what already existed rather than having the courage to release what didn't. That can be a blessing and impact lives, not just now, but for generations. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's look at it this way. Pressure will, if your foundation is not strong, pressure will push you out of alignment because now you're being conformed into the image of him, and you're being transformed into the image of him, but you realize that where you were no longer fits where you're going. So the pressure will push you to settle for somewhere that you once were, or settle for much less than where you're going. Mm. Now watch this. Let me say this to you, okay? If this is blessing you, let me know in the comments, okay? All right. So as we move on, I'm still on number 2. Waiting exposes your emotions. Or waiting exposes and amplifies your emotions. Okay, here's what waiting is like. Okay, when we're in a season of transition and we're waiting, going from one place to the next, it is like someone who is on drugs. Example, someone who's on drugs and they've been using for quite some time. But what happens is that which they were given or that which they were using gave them a high. And once that which they were given was is no longer there, now they get moody, they get agitated, they get fidgety, right? They get irritable, right? Until they get the next hit or the next thing that they're using, the next substance that they're using. Talking about what happens while you're waiting. So your emotions amplify because what sustained you in an old season, now you know that will no longer work, and so now you get moody on the destination of where you're going because you're not used to it. Okay, so let me say this right here: your emotions, again, in this season of waiting, waiting will expose and amplify your emotions. Oh yeah. Because here's the thing, your emotions are attached to the fruit of the last season you came from. But opposes the root of who you truly are. In other words, see how I can put this. Where you're going to, where you're growing to, in other words, what got you here won't keep you there. So what helped you in the past won't sustain you where you're going next. Okay, I'm not trying to sound cliches. I'm not trying to sound churchy, but it's just the truth. Because real talk, when I was in a situation not too long ago where I couldn't control the things like I thought I could, I fought it long enough. You know what I found out? My emotions were screaming. When you transition from one phase of life to another, when you transition from one dimension of life to another, when you transition, you will find that the emotions that depended on a certain substance or depended on a certain thing all of a sudden start acting up. And now you're going to have to learn how to control your emotions in the midst of movement, in the midst of transition. Now, I'm saying transition, but all this is going back to our topic, which we're talking about, which is always be ready. So number one, I said one things that ego does. One of the things that waiting does, it exposes your ego. Number two, waiting exposes and amplifies your emotions. But then number three, waiting actually exposes the strength of your foundation. Waiting actually exposes the strength of your foundation. Now, why is this so important? In the age that we live in today, it's so easy to look to your left and look to your right and see how someone else has it going on the surface, right? On the surface or on the screen, like you see me on the screen right now, right? It looks like they got it all together. It looks like, man, if I had it like them, I'd be good. But let me say this to you. Though it may look like that, that doesn't mean that they got it all together. In fact, you can see the shine, but you don't see what's happening from behind. You can see the glory, right? But you do not see or have not experienced the story of what that person has gone through behind the scenes. You see, I'm so very watchful that I don't judge a book by its cover, right? I used to get to a point where I saw people, whether it was on television or whether they were at a certain level, and I used to be like, man, I want to be just like them. I want what they have. Wow. But the question came back to me, do I want to pay the price they paid? You see, do I want to have the development and the foundation that they had to endure? Yeah, because okay, watch this. Watch this. What's the most important part of the house? See, we can look at the house and we can be like, I like the external beauty of the house. Man, that's what's attracting me. Yeah, I know, I get it. The external looks beautiful, but it's not the external that's holding that house up. It's what's not seen that's holding that house up. Can I tell you, the most important part of the house is not the top level or external beauty, but it is the strength and depth of the foundation. You may be in a season where you feel like nobody's paying attention to you. You may be in a season where you feel like, wow, I'm doing all that I'm supposed to do, yet not some things are just not moving the way I think they should. In fact, some of you, like me, have prayed and you've asked God, God, when? Not only asked why, you've asked when. You know why you ask when? Because you're tired of waiting. You know why you ask when? Because your emotions are out of whack. Because your ego is being exposed now. Like, in other words, you feel like after you graduated high school or wherever the case may be, wherever you are, maybe you are in your career, you feel like I should have been somewhere much further than where I am right now. I know, I get it. I get it. There's a regret you have. And yes, you can't change what happened, but all you can do right now in the present is make the right decision, the best decision that can impact the future. But you cannot actually go back to the past to change the present leading into the future. No, you got to be in the present, making a better decision for the future and not allow your past to guilt trip you. And what's happening is there are things in your foundation that's being strengthened. There's things in your foundation that's helping you get prepared in a season where you are maybe invisible, in a season where you may be in the dark, in a season where you're not really seen. It's like you're in the ground, but you're not, nobody's paying attention. But what I've learned is to take my eyes off of them and focus on him. You see, I've learned that when pressure shows up, my foundation has to be present in the moment, because what pressure does, it will actually force you to try to look at your past. And then what happens when you look at your past, you'll try to glorify the past as if it was the greatest thing that ever happened. But really, when you were in the situation in your past, you wanted to get out. But now that you're out, you're no longer there. You look back at the past and all of a sudden it looks dressed beautifully because it's trying to lure you back to the place where you were in prison, or lure you back to a place where you were not strong, lure you back to a place where you wouldn't you're back in a place where you're not as confident. You're back in a place. See, it wants to lure you back into bondage. But the truth of the matter is, when you look at it, pressure wants you to look back so you never take the step or make the decision in the present or be present in the present to make the decision to go forward. So pressure has a way of making you look back to glorify the past. It also has a way of making you look at the future, hoping and wishing what things would be like if you go into the future. But here's the thing, you become absent in the present, and you got to make the decision in the present. And you have to strengthen your foundation in the present. Yes, goals are important. You should set the goals. But the question is, what's the next step? In your foundation, what's the next step to strengthen your foundation so that when you do take the next step, you won't be a one-hit wonder? When you do take the next step, it's not always going back, repeating the same lesson over and over and over and over and over again. Oh, I've repeated lessons over and over and over and over again. I absolutely have. And here's the thing I found. The reason I repeated lessons over and over again was because I was avoiding the discomfort that the opportunity called for. Sure, it was great looking at other people. It was great looking at other people and from the outside being like, man, I want to be like them. But when I became them, when it came to me making the decision, now I'm facing the hits. Now I'm facing the ruffles and now I'm facing the what the opportunity costs for. Yeah, yeah. See, growth, let me say this right here. Here's what I would say to you. Growth, I heard this from a mentor, I'll say it again. Growth, we think what's above the ground is what impacts the growth we see. But really, growth is down before you see it go up. That's why we talked about foundation. Because what pressure does, it exposes the strength of your foundation going deep before you go high. See what it is, most times we want to go high and we want to avoid going deep. We want to go high and just jump to the next thing instead of actually being deep enough or getting deeper enough so that when we do come up, we can stay up. That doesn't mean we'll always have every day where we're smiley all the time. And for those of you that do that, great. But I'm saying you're going to be to a point where you'll have peace of mind even in the midst of chaos. See, when your foundation is strong, the winds may blow. It may get rough. But at the end of the day, at the end of the storm, you're not wiped out. You're actually standing, but you're standing stronger. So I saw a question here and I want to answer this question. What to do when our work is being delayed by someone else's laziness? Good question. Here's what I want to answer with that, or answer that question with. Okay? Sure. You may be on the same team. But what I've learned is when people start getting lazy, or people who I'm supposed to work with, or we're on the same team, but we're not clicking, I learned to focus and be the example. Because guess what? I learned not to wait on people. I love people, I appreciate them, but I learned not to wait on them. Not that I don't care, not that I don't have any compassion for them, but I realize that this is an opportunity and an obstacle that I've got to be creative and think around, right? Because here's what I find. I'm glad you asked that question. Here's what I find. People get excited to get started. But then when you're in the middle of something and you're supposed to do a project or whatever the case may be, and they don't do their end of the deal, all of a sudden people start getting it's like they go ghost, or they have how can I say, kind of amnesia, right? But then they saw and they thought the project wouldn't work or whatever the case may be. Whoever situations may have come up, but I believe this: if you stay focused and persistent on what you're to do, even in the midst of their absence, what's going to end up happening is over time, the consistency is going to speak louder than their inconsistency. And so now the fruit of what you did is going to show up much more than if you were waiting on them to show up. I hope that helped, right? But in that case for you, your foundation may be tried. You may be challenged in that sense. That's an opportunity for you to grow. Yeah, that's an opportunity for you to grow. Because here's the thing. People don't believe you until they see the fruit. And sometimes we want to tell people the vision before we actually have demonstrated the fruit or allowed the fruit to come from a strong root. But in this season and in what you're dealing with, be thankful for them, but at the same time, don't wait on them. All right? So, that being said, I hope that was helpful. All right, so let's do this again. What does waiting expose? Number one, it exposes your ego. Number two, it exposes and amplifies your emotions. One, to get you to act crazy or get out of whack so you don't stay focused on the mission in front of you. And then number three, it exposes the strength of your foundation, okay? Now, you may be asking, okay, that's maybe what pressure does, or that may be what emotions or what's being exposed. So, Rico, let's move to the next thing. What about what must I do to make sure I always stay ready? I'm glad you asked. Okay. I'm going to say it this way. Number one, recognize that if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. One of the worst things that can happen is opportunities show up and you're not prepared for it. One, one of the worst things that can happen is with something you've been preparing for, and all of a sudden, because it didn't happen when you thought it was supposed to happen, now it shows up, and because all of a sudden you got out of whack, you got out of character, you didn't become the person for the season that you were preparing for. You gave up on it, and then the opportunity shows up, and now you are caught off guard. That's one of the worst feelings in the world, right? But here's the thing, it's not over, right? But it does mean that you got to stay focused and be consistent. That's a challenging thing too, especially in the era that we're in with all the distractions that we have. Yeah, you've got to be intentional about focus. You got to be intentional about who you are. You got to be intentional about where you're going. Because if you're not, then you'll be distracted by people who are intentional and focused about what they're doing and who they are and where they're going. Yeah. Okay, so watch this. Secondly, practice privately, consistently, or consistently practice privately, becoming the person who can govern the promotion or the next level you're being prepared for. It's one thing you see the benefits of the next place. You see the benefits of the promotion. You see the benefits of what you think or what you perceive as success, right? But if you're not prepared for the success, if you don't have some scars, if you don't have some bumps and some bruises to your ego, if you haven't been tried, then how can you be true? You know, one of the interesting things I find out in America, in the country that I'm in, and it could be some other people, whatever country you're in, but I know from what I've seen is that mostly here in America, I believe we have been conditioned for comfort. Our faith has been conditioned and taught for comfort or escapism, but it hasn't been challenged or developed for courage. Courage to stand when everything else is shaky. Courage to stand when everybody else says run. Courage to stand when the pressure says just walk away. You can come back and do it again later when the opportunity is right there in front of you right now. Yeah, courage. It's not just, and when I say opportunity, yes, I'm mentioning that, but I'm not saying that just from a selfish perspective. See, I'm not saying chase promotion. I'm not saying covet promotion for your own ego. We just said something about ego. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about God wants to promote you because you represent him. Yeah. And how you respond in the season you're in, you just do not know who's actually watching you. See, I'm not saying it's easier, but it's much simpler if instead of avoiding the fire, that you actually make up in your mind that you're gonna not only that look at and go around the fire, you gotta go through it. All right, so that being said, don't be so quick to escape your development season. Don't be so quick to escape your development season. Okay, this is how you know that you're ready for the next place. This is how you know you're ready for greater. This is how you know you're ready to govern more or steward more. See, when you get to the point where you no longer try to avoid the fire, or you try to avoid the challenge, or you try to avoid the discomfort of where you're going, you get to the point where you're like, you know what, I'm gonna be not like the cow when the rain and the storms come, I'm not gonna run away, but I'm gonna be like the bison and I'm gonna go through the storm. You see, If you don't go through the storm, if you don't go through the discomfort, if you don't go through what is required for you to be promoted, then you can't stay promoted. In other words, if you don't go through it, you're going to have to repeat it again. And what's one of the biggest things you don't want is to repeat something that you know you should have conquered. I'm on here a little longer than normal, but it's okay because I'm sure this is ministering to somebody. You're talking, you're listening to someone who delayed, right? You listen to someone gifted, right? And what I'm telling you about and what I'm saying here concerning waiting, what I'm saying about always being ready, you're looking at a guy that when challenges came, yes, I got excited about starting, but then when the discomfort and pain of those challenges started to happen in my discipline and in my ego, or discipline and in my endurance, I wasn't as focused because I was so outcome focused. Because I was so outcome focused, I missed the income transformation. See, I was so outcome, I was looking at okay, when are we going to get to the destination? Instead of actually taking the journey day by day. This is not popular in the day we live in right now. Trust me, we don't want this. We don't want to hear this. Most of us don't want to hear this, but it's the truth. But you can't be so quick to escape your development season, because if you're quick to escape that, then you will repeat it. It could be the same game, different fans. I got one more example for you. If this is blessing you, let me know in the comments. Hey, like and share, okay? I haven't really said this publicly a lot, but I can go back and remember when I quit my high school basketball team in my senior year. I believed and I believe I deserved to start. And the people that were in front of me were not better than me. But you know what held me up? My attitude. And so instead of actually looking at the process and developing and growing through it, I felt entitled. And so when things didn't go a certain way, especially my senior year, I'm like, man, I'm a senior in high school. I should be playing. I should be starting, absolutely. But the coach, it just didn't work out. And then not only that, when I started, I think he wanted to move me to the 4, which was the power forward, and I was shooting guard. I didn't understand it then, right? Right? So I had a situation with the previous coach when we changed schools and locations. He was no longer the coach, right? So I was behind the bench or behind people who I was better than. But here I'm a senior and I'm starting, but now they want me, the same yelling and fussing coach wants me to actually go from the 2 guard to the 4, the power forward. And I'm like, I ain't no power forward, man. What are you trying to prove, man? No, I want to go out and play the 2 guard. Things just didn't work out. And I'm telling you from my experience, I look back at that with regret, because when the pressure came and it didn't go the way I thought, the coach, I remember him telling me before I quit, he said, hey, if you quit now, you'll always quit. And I said, yeah, right. You know why? Because my ego was hurt. And so what I did when I quit to make him feel my disgust. Like, you gonna miss me. That's what I did. Right? It wasn't until some years later, probably about my baby girl graduated. All 3 of my children went to my alma mater, my high school. And my baby girl was playing basketball there. This was my first time in that gym since I quit in high school, right? And I began to look and reflect and see some things. You know, one of the first people's voice that came to me that I remember was that coach. Say, if you quit now, you'll always quit. And man, it stung, but it was the truth. Because I remember What would have been if I didn't stop? See, but I stopped because the process didn't go like I wanted it to go. I quit when I should have stayed. And so what happened was it led to a cycle or cycles of quitting later in life. When pressure would come, I would actually about to be there, about to break through. And I believe this is called the anxiety of success. It wasn't that I was afraid of failing, it was anxiety. And so because of that, I actually started all over again. I like, you know what? I'm almost about to break through, and then I just get back to it. I'll start again. Guess what I did? And let me tell you something that cost me. And now I see once you start growing and you start seeing patterns, I started seeing that pattern. Well, the reason I wasn't ready because I quit too soon. In other words, because I avoided going through the development season, that led to a cycle of repeating things that could have been handled earlier but weren't. To where not too long ago, I'm faced with the situation again, and it's different, it's discomforting, but I hate the long game, but I'm telling you, all the shortcuts, you know what all the shortcuts are like? If you keep taking all these shortcuts and get out of your development season too soon, it's going to be like a beautiful looking door, right? But as soon as you open that door, it's a brick wall behind it. So you spent all that time chasing that door only to run into a brick wall. Don't be so quick to leave your development season too soon. Because if you don't go through the development right now, you're going to end up repeating the process to develop later. So make the decision now in the discomfort. Okay? All right. So here's another thing. I'm almost done. Yeah, let's see. Stop investing or wasting time hanging around or seeking approval from people who still are comfortable with where you've outgrown. Stop seeking approval or advice from people who are comfortable with where you no longer are. In other words, stop trying to entertain people or the past when you're no longer there. Because, see, that's the old you trying to keep you stuck in the old. But where you're going, I'm not saying be rude to the people. I am saying that where you're growing to, don't be surprised that everybody you start with will not be able to stay with you. And it doesn't mean that they're bad people. It's just that you're growing to another place that you can no longer settle. Okay? All right. But here's the thing. Allow God to connect you with the right people who will stretch you higher. All that to go talk about always be ready. Why did I give you that foundation? It's so important because if you give up in the cocoon, if you give up in the process, you'll delay the destination. It's hard lesson it's a hard lesson or hard pill to swallow, but it's the truth. And I'm being real with you all here that yes, as there's some things I wish were easier. I wish I could just snap my fingers and the things that I see and what happens in a vision, I wish they could come sooner, but they don't at times. And what I've learned to do in this process, in this point of my life, is when I'm in a season of growth, when I'm in a season of transformation, I cannot allow myself to dwell in the past. And yes, though I have a goal in the future, I cannot look to the future. But I gotta be focused on the next step in the present right now. And one of the things I will say to you While you're waiting, serve someone else. While you're waiting, be a blessing to someone else. How is your attitude when everybody else is winning? How is your attitude when everybody else is winning? Is your attitude one of, oh, they winning, they got my spot? Or can you celebrate them? And instead of trying to look down on them, can you celebrate them to the point to be like, you know what? Man, I'm excited for you. You know why I'm excited for you? Glad you got your chance to shine. Because I know I'm next. At some point, I know I'm next, right? All right, and then lastly, never forget who you are and whose you are. We're talking about always be ready. All that. See, in the waiting season is to get you ready for where you're going. But if you give up in the waiting season, again, you just cannot experience what's been prepared for you. There's no way around it. You can try to go under, you can try to go over, you can try to go around, but I promise you that at some point you're going to have to make the decision to go through so you can grow through the transformation. Was this helpful today? Was this very helpful? I hope it was. I believe it was. I see your comments here. This is wow. This is a little longer than what I normally do. It's all good though because I try to keep it at a certain maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes. But I guess felt led to go this direction. And I thank you all so much for tuning in with me now. But I also thank you for tuning in with me and watching our shorts. And if you don't, follow our other social medias at the Identity King, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, right? But definitely here on YouTube, I certainly appreciate you. I have moved my videos, live videos here for a reason, because definitely the other platforms, they're good. But unlike YouTube, which is the second largest search engine in the world, I can actually be on here and be a blessing to you. And here's the thing, you may not watch it today, but you can go back and watch it years from now, months from now, you know? And so stay tuned. There are going to be some things to come, but right now, if you haven't subscribed again, like this, share this video, subscribe. We certainly do appreciate it. Stay tuned for the next video we have coming up soon. I'm sure you're going to be blessed by that one too. But until then, stay encouraged. Love you. God bless. Talk to you next time.